Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about staying on the same team in good and bad moments.
And I'll tell you, we have needed to remind each other that we're on the same team a few times, which is a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. We all need that reminder from time to time. And the last couple of weeks were definitely not our norm. We were traveling both for Aaron's 40th, which a lot of you probably saw the surprise trip that I planned for him. It turned out pretty good, right?
It was the best.
12 out of 10 experience. And then after that, going to Ohio, that's where Aaron's family's from. And now we have a vacation home there. And so Sky was there. We had spring break. And so being on the road, right, it's shaking up your routine. You're out of your comfort zone. And travel, we all know, can be kind of stressful for couples. That'll come up even in our sessions, like just tension, disagreements. So with all that said, we have very much gotten present to the power of remembering that we're on the same team with both little things, or it might seem little, but also some bigger things. So a couple quick examples before we go into specific points for how to stay on the same team. So we've been laughing, right? We're coming back on a totally different time zone. And our daughter, she's 3, she has been waking up way earlier than normal.
Oh yeah, this is for the parents.
Yeah, so we would normally wake up well before her. And that's been a game-changing habit for us, is to not wake up with her, but to wake up at least an hour before her. We get a little time to ourselves. We usually drink something that's called cacao. It's a drinking chocolate. It's great for meditation and creativity. We would listen to something. Like, it's our kind of self-development time, right? It's our...
Or just even setting the intention for the day.
Yes.
And she's been encroaching upon our time together.
Yeah.
Even waking up, I think today it was like 10 minutes into us starting.
Yes.
Then the thing that happens is our dog is not on a time for her food. Mm-hmm. Whenever she hears our daughter, like, that's the time. Yeah. So now she's starting to get like crazy and whining and jumping on the couch because she's ready for food. And we're just like, oh my gosh. We literally needed like 30 more minutes.
We just needed a little minute to ourselves, right? But life is going to life. And so we couldn't control that. And those are those moments that we can, when we get frustrated or stressed, it's easy to turn against each other, right? To even take that out on each other, or start to now bicker about, well, couldn't you do this? Or why aren't you doing that? So those are quote unquote smaller moments where it's very easy to forget you're on the same team. And now this little simple situation is having you guys spiral and not have a good morning. But we've done pretty well even with that.
With that one, yeah, we stay on the same team. And a lot of what we're going to cover today in the principles, I think I was even very cognizant of that we used today. So very real.
So then a quote unquote bigger thing that's not just like morning routine is issues with family or friends, like these bigger important relationships in our lives. And we have had, I think we've shared this on a couple episodes, just a recurring family member that we will have intermittent kind of big issues with, and they kind of come out of nowhere, right? And then it will feel like it's disruptive for a couple weeks because it can get pretty intense. Now, don't get us wrong, we are making progress with this family member, and we continue to have conversations and really try to work through that. But there was a pretty big breakdown a couple weeks ago, very disruptive. It felt, for sure it affects me even more, but we didn't turn against each other. And it would have been very easy to point the finger about even just little things like, well, why couldn't you have said this instead of that? And you shouldn't handle it this way. And this is how you should be doing it. But we don't turn against each other.
I give you like 90% credit though. Not really. And I think I've learned sort of my role in how to stay on the same team. Mm-hmm. It's more or less the energy that I have, whether it start to feel more like frustration or more like anger. Then, as many of you know, sometimes you use your partner as the place to vent. Mm-hmm. And I've just realized that my level of venting, it doesn't end up turning us against each other. However, it will dramatically affect how traumatic or how much you take on this event.
Mm-hmm.
And then that might last for a few days or a couple of weeks. And, then that's how I'll start to try to force you to, shift your energy after a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days. And I think it's a more of a lag situation for us. So again, all the credit to you. And what I'm learning is to not let my energy
Mm-hmm.
be what kind of takes you kind of further down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Good
And
points.
yeah, and so I just really wanted to state this, that as you mentioned, there's two things. You can have the short term and you can have sort of the long term, maybe more challenging things. But what we want to invite you into is to really look at a few frustrating or challenging scenarios where you do stay on the same team and that's some that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And just start to think about what are the differences there. What really causes one to be, oh, we maintain being on the same team, and what is it, whether it's mindset or behavior or action, that ends up turning that against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, you're going to face external challenges in life. You're also going to face relationship challenges or stressors. So you have external stressors and you have relational stressors. And all too often, we see it most of the time, it's not really the external stressor. Like those things happen. But what turns you against each other is that your relationship interactions,
Mm-hmm.
the relationship stressor from your interactions amplify or escalate
Mm-hmm.
the external stressor.
Yeah.
And that's really the moment that we see that turns a couple against each other.
If I could say one more thing about that before we get to the specific principles of, do this instead, because we're going to make it very tangible. I think what you just said is so true. And I was envisioning just how easy it is to have one little interaction that feels frustrating snowball. Right? Like maybe in the morning you had this frustrating interaction, you didn't feel like you're on the same team, and then you carry that into your day, and then now your text messages aren't that kind to each other, and it snowballs, and then your evening goes that way. Now you go to bed pissed off at each other, maybe have an argument, and it carries on. So all that to say that when these stressors, like Aaron just described, whether it's an external factor or it is something relational, a dynamic between you two, you've got to interrupt it before it gains momentum. To not let it snowball for days and days, because that's when you start to feel so lost and discouraged.
This is a really good transition, actually. So let me use that to move into principle one.
Yeah.
We have 5 principles here today to help you maintain being on the same team, no matter the stressor or challenge that you're facing. And they're not necessarily linear or sequential or the only ones. But let's give you 5 today. And I guarantee one of them is going to help you with one of those situations that you're already thinking of, is one that turns you against each other. So the first one, and this is one that I've had to learn to get even better at. It's that, and I've used it more as the first thing, because if you get this wrong, it can really turn you against each other pretty quick. Convey that you are both in the pain together.
You mean like commiserate rather than coach each other?
Well, that's really where I'm going here. I think all too often, and I don't believe it's just me, because I think we've done enough.
For sure.
We've done enough coaching to know maybe it's a male thing, but oftentimes we think that helping our partner get out of the frustration or the upset or shifting the energy is what they need, and it's often not.
Like through a logical solution. Or
Exactly.
Like, it's not a big deal, babe. Like, this shouldn't be upsetting you like this.
Very logical. You already said it's either logical or it ends up being diminishing, because you're saying like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And we think that really helps them. And it just oftentimes doesn't.
Always doesn't.
So it always doesn't. So the beginning here is forget all that. Forget the logic. Don't tell them it's not a big deal. If you're going to feel on the same team, it means that the team is feeling the same thing. That I am with you in this pain. I get this really does suck. This is very frustrating. This was very unexpected. I know this was out of our control. Just some version of, I'm in this pain with you.
Yes.
And you don't have to stay in this conversation a long time, but just try this one out. Right? So we're going to make this one short. Principle 1, I'm in this with you. I get it.
Yep. This is frustrating.
I can really understand. I can really feel this. It is frustrating. This sucks.
Yes. What you just said, it makes such a difference. It just like, it feels like you can relax. Like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Phew. Okay.
Let's keep it at that, because that's the energy that you want, is that your partner can now relax, right? When they relax and it's like, oh, we're in this together, look, you just feel energetically like you're arm in arm.
Yes.
Now, a second piece might be what starts to move you forward, but basically, you can remind each other of your shared positive intention. Now, you really have to have done the first one first. So you kind of have to deal with the initial emotional or energetic upset first. And like I said, this isn't always the case, but hey, I'm really in this with you. That can kind of be the piece that links you together. Like, we're in this together. Then your partner might be open for more of, all right, hey, what's our positive intent here? So for us, for example, we're parents. And so, I mean, a lot of external stresses that turn relationship stressors on is parenting. So, and we've been experiencing that. So for us, we desire for our daughter to be kind, responsible, respectful, and a sharing person. So I'm going to throw this out there. We have an only child. So whether the only child syndrome is a real thing out there, I'm not sure anymore. And it's not like we're trying to fight against that.
Yeah.
But we can see some aspects of negotiating identity, or like we were talking to Sean Johnson, right? She was an only child, and she mentioned she didn't really get to play. She didn't really get to imagine things or like get messy, as she was always with adults. So we've been really taking that on. And how do we best create this environment where our daughter can be kind, can share, be respectful, versus sometimes what we get now. And you can jump in.
Yeah, she's very assertive. You know, she speaks her mind, and I love that, right? We don't want to dampen her fire, and like that will, I'm sure, benefit her in many ways in her life, that those personality traits, which a lot of personality, more and more research is finding a lot of it is innate. And so no matter how you condition them or shape them, right, there's still going to be certain personality traits that just are very strong in them. So we don't want to dampen that, but we do want to be conscientious of, okay, we want to make sure that we can help, bump up some of these other traits as well.
Yeah, she's gotten pretty sad when there's a friend that has a birthday. We were at a friend's birthday this weekend, and even opening presents. Her best friend actually got a dress.
Yeah.
And Sky thought
wanted to put it on.
Well, I thought it was hers, right? So it's like, no, Sky, that's your best friend.
Yes.
It's like, let's not act like it's yours. So many things like that. So what can take you off track and have you be against each other is to try to coach each other to do things different. Oh, you should have done this, or you could do this. It's all from the same maybe intent, but we have to loosen up the grip on trying to like modify our partner's behavior versus, again, back to the principle, let's remind each other of what is our shared positive intent here, right? So you broaden the perspective. Hey, I know we are really desiring for our daughter to feel more collaborative, that she's more open to sharing, and she's respectful. It's like, okay, right? That brings you back to being on the same team.
I think it's important to point out what's the opposite of this. The opposite would be just putting your energy towards blaming each other or pointing the finger or focusing only on the problem. And this applies to anything, right? We gave a parenting example, but we have also had big things show up in finances, in health, with other family members, right? These big things that it's very easy to just want to externalize the frustration. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel responsible. So let me point the finger at you.
Fine, you want to do something different? You take over then.
Right. But we all know how that goes. And look, maybe the challenge that you're facing does have to do with one of you making a quote unquote mistake or doing something that affected the team. Maybe it is a financial decision that they made. we've been there, you guys. If you've been listening a while, you've heard that story. The point is, it doesn't get you anywhere pointing the finger at each other and wasting your energy or just focusing on the problem. You need to identify what is the shared positive intention, because that is a reminder of the direction we both want to go. So, in practice, whether you encounter something small, something big this coming week, this coming month, I want you to start to talk about, hey, babe, what is the shared positive intention that we have? Now, I know some of you in listening to this might already be, and we haven't even gotten to the other principles, but just in hearing these two, you might be thinking, well, like Freeman's, when are we going to have these kind of conversations? Like, are you just having these in passing? Are these happening just on the go? When do you have time for this? How do we make sure that these don't become an argument? And so for those of you who haven't heard, because we know there's a lot of new listeners here, one of our best habits that we have as a couple is using our family meeting guide. So this is a template that we have. It actually has weekly templates, quarterly, and yearly, all with different questions and different intentions. So I'm not going to explain it all because you can actually go to the webpage and it'll break it down. But the point is that if you use our family meeting guide, which thousands of couples around the world do on a regular basis, it's going to make sure that you have those intentional check-ins, that you prevent miscommunications, that you're able to discuss the things that are most important to you and really be on the same page. And if you even just started with one of the templates, like the weekly template, it would make a huge difference in your communication. So there's actually two ways that you can get this template. You can get it as a separate product, and we'll link that in the show notes. So if you just want the family meeting guide on its own, or the best way is we actually give it as a bonus gift when you sign up for our popular 30-day Prioritizing Us Couples Challenge. And you can sign up for the next round if you have never taken that challenge, which, by the way, over 40,000 couples have, and you can read the incredible testimonials. So that's really the best way, is getting it as a bonus gift with that, because then you also get to do the 30-day challenge. But that is a game-changing practice for you to implement and really improve your communication and sync up and get connected. Again, we'll link both of those in the show notes, but you can also type in to your browser mycouplechallenge.com for the challenge plus guide bonus, or you can go to thecouplesexperience.com/family. So that's an incredible practice that you should start right away.
It's such a great structure and template to have these types of conversations. So we'll move to principle 3, and it comes right after the reminding of your shared positive intent. So once you do that, then what you need to do is to accept that you might not agree on the method or steps to take next.
Not always.
But that shouldn't be what impedes you in trying some things out or what turns you against each other. So with that acceptance, you need to be more willing to temporarily try out each other's idea, or even having just an open mastermind, let's say, about what are some ideas, what are some things we could try, and getting more in this adaptable, flexible, open, creative, resourceful state, and thinking that maybe neither of us have the exact right answer. I think we all get so particular about this is the one action to get us to this outcome. Now that we're in the shared outcome, can we just let go of, maybe we don't even know exactly. Maybe it's some blend of the two things that we both want to do, or something we haven't thought of. So that's really the idea. And, for us being more kind of real about where we're at, we agreed to have a sugar and screen detox
with our daughter and ourselves too. Actually,
I was going to say that we traveled, so we've partly accepted that to make the flight go well, our daughter watches that her iPad, but we do a lot of snacks and
books as much as we can.
Necessarily the best eating, I think, when we're traveling.
And Grandma and Grandpa also like to give her ice cream. And I mean, you have to have some flexibility with other family members and on a vacation.
And while we were in Ohio, we also set out to find a good summer camp for her while we're there. And that really fulfills our goal of being able to have her be more socialized, more sharing, with others that are her own age, And so that kind of helps us navigate this general idea of the only child type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So these are some of the ways we're going to try and say modify the behavior. And we're not hard and fast that these are the answers. We're going to try them out. We can debrief on them. We'll have another family meeting sometime later. How's this going? Is this moving us in that direction or not? So basically, that's the primary takeaway is that, yeah, it's not one idea. It's not one of, you just accept one other person's. You just accept that we have the same positive intent. You just accept that maybe we don't know. We're going to have to try things out. And we go from there.
I think a lot of people who follow us or listen to us might assume that because we're aligned in so many ways that we would agree on all initial, ideas or decisions. And that's not the case. I don't have an exact percentage for you. You'd have to really think about it. But there's definitely a good percentage of time where whatever we're brainstorming about, right, or trying to discuss, we don't necessarily jump, oh, you know what? You're right. That is the best idea ever. Let's just go with that. There's times where, because we're both opinionated, right? We both also think that we have good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so we definitely have to, lovingly negotiate or really kind of be flexible and just say, okay, you know what? I'm hearing that you feel even more confident about your idea. Let's try yours first. But there's trust there, right? We trust each other. And although we may be opinionated and a lot of times may think that our opinion is best at first, like we take time to hear each other out. And it's like, okay, like explain a little more of why you think that's better. Let each other make the case, right? Not like lawyers. You don't want to be that intense in these conversations, but let each other make the case and consider that you don't have the best idea or that you hadn't thought about it that way. But at the end of the day, there has to be trust there and there has to be a willingness to say, you know what, maybe I don't know. Let's try yours. We can always pivot. Remember that you can always make another decision. You can always readdress it in a week in your family meeting and say, hey, how did that go? We tried that method in whatever situation you're discussing. Hey, do we continue with that or do we make a modification?
Mm-hmm. The thing that covers that one. So let's do principle number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this one can be used at different times throughout this kind of general process. But I think people try to use it maybe a little bit too early is the only thing. So the principle here is to use humor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that in and of itself, I know brings up a lot for various different people. You might not think that you're naturally that funny or humorous. So it really is just bringing lightness, might be the better way to say it. Humor or lightness, reducing the significance, but in your own personality.
Yeah.
And you and your partner know each other, and obviously you don't want it to feel as if it's something out of character. But at some point, you want to bring a little bit of lightness, some humor. Again, if it's too early, I think that's used as a mask or a deflection, or it's dismissive. Mm-hmm. I think largely it happens like, oh, I try to be humorous because I'm just trying to get my partner to move on. I'm trying to change their state. But what you haven't done is any of the first ones. You haven't conveyed that you're in it together. You haven't said what your shared positive intent is. You probably haven't understood like why this is even meaningful or what's the level of priority to my partner. Mm-hmm. So all of that can kind of take you off really feeling as if you understand one another or are on the same team if humor is too early.
Yeah.
So I think we'll keep this one simple. It's in your own way. How do you bring lightness and humor to it? And then principle 5 is really then is remembering that this situation is temporary. Now, I think this is something we learned so much more being new parents. I've been sharing this with a friend of ours who is even newer to being parents than we are. Their daughter is 1, while ours is 3. And so many things in the beginning, right, month like 1 through 4, the days are really long. Mm-hmm. And like all parents say, but the years are really short. Mm-hmm. And so many things like sleep and feeding and different development with a child, it really is frustrating or can be in the moments, but it doesn't last that long. Mm-hmm. And if we could take that mentality into other situations of our married life, that this is temporary. We've shared so often now how that real estate transaction, that was almost 3 years ago now was so intense and brought us to such a point. But being able to remind each other that even something like that would be temporary
Yep.
is such a key and pivotal moment
Mm-hmm.
to make sure you're on the same team and then being able to move forward from there. I mean, you just can't move forward if you're not on the same team. If you don't feel like your partner has your back, that they're in the pain with you, that you have this shared positive intent, that there's some humor, your personality shows through. It doesn't matter the action that you choose to take.
Mm.
You could still feel as if you're going down a path towards some sort of solution, but not feel like you're on the same team. I mean, that happens for a lot of couples, I feel. We're doing this because this is what my partner wanted, and they were so high energy that we have to go this route, and I often feel like it goes their way.
Mm.
That's not the relationship you want either.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of it, hey, this is temporary.
I love the
We're
way
going to
you wrote
get
it,
through
though.
this,
Mm-hmm.
but we're on the same team, and however long it lasts, it's going to be temporary, and we're going to do it.
But I love the way you wrote it here, and you didn't read it exact. So I'm going to read it for you, okay? So remember that the situation is temporary and your marriage is long-term. And I really, when you wrote that, I love it because this year, as we already said, was your 40th, big milestone year. But it's also our 10-year wedding anniversary coming up in a few months, which we're planning that fun trip now. And when I just think about our life together, and how much we've overcome, because there's been different hurdles that we have overcome. It's how we've handled it that has strengthened our bond. And of course, it's really hard and it stinks when you're in it. Like, no one's like, yay, challenge.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun. But if you really maintain this same team mindset, on the other side of it, you have more respect for each other. You feel more connected to and bonded with that person because our bond and our connection, it solidifies and strengthens through adversity. It's not just the peak moments, you guys. It's not just the fun times that really anchors it. In fact, I would argue that it's even more about how you handle the hard times that strengthens it. And so don't forget that and really zoom out and look at the bigger picture of life. And as Aaron said, remind yourselves, this is temporary. This is hard. It stinks. We're both stressed about it, but we're on the same team. We've got each other's backs. Let's follow these steps that the Freemans outlined. And let's remember that we're going to zoom out in some period of time and be like, babe, are you so proud of how we handled that? Like, look at what we've learned, or look how we became better, or the wisdom that we gained from it. So remember that, write this down, and we really hope you took away a lot from this. This is an episode that I would say re-listen to quarterly because it is so easy to forget that you're on the same team, and this mindset is really important. So if you enjoyed this episode, send us a DM. It also helps us so much if you'll write a review on whichever platform you're listening on and give it 5-star rating. That really helps us reach more people. And also make sure you take advantage of that resource that we mentioned. The Family Meeting Guide is absolutely a game changer for your communication, for your connection, for feeling on the same team. And you'll see why with each of the templates. So make sure that you check out the links so that you can pick whether you want to get that as a standalone resource or you want to get it as a bonus with the 30-day Prioritizing Us Couples Challenge. But we are here for you. We've got your backs, and we will talk to you on the next episode.